her maiden question in the House of Commons, inquired of the Prime Minister, was he thinking about banning the burqa? The House fell into this shocked, hushed silence. Must not be discussed, might offend Muslims, we might be accused of racism. What was his response? I'm not going to follow you down that line.
I'm not going to follow her down that line.
Keir Starmer is staying on the right side of the Muslim vote like there's no tomorrow. At the age of 8, she disappeared beneath the burqa.
8 years old, is that how young?
Yeah. Are they old enough to make their own decisions? What I think these people don't want us to confront is the possibility that what the people are asking is not unreasonable. Give them what they want. Britain has lost what it used to be extremely good at. That was being sensible.
And now, trans children are all trans. All the celebrities' kids.
The Supreme Court's biological sex ruling, I mean, think about that. It took 5 years to get 5 years.
Do you think that Trump is actually on the Epstein files?
Grab him by the...
Prince Andrew, among others, is accused of being involved. So why did you give Virginia Giuffre $12 million to shut the up then?
61% of regular Heretics viewers haven't subscribed yet. Can I ask you a favour? If you love these fearless conversations, hit subscribe now because it's free, takes 2 seconds and powers our mission. Kevin O'Sullivan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Should we ban the burqa?
Yes, right, I'm off, bye. It's an interesting debate that we are now having. It kind of was ignited, we're filming this not long, just a few days after Reform's first female MP, Sarah Pochin, stood up and for her maiden question in the House of Commons, inquired of the Prime Minister, was he thinking about bringing in banning the burqa? And when she asked that question, it was as if she had proposed to the House that in order to deal with the population explosion, we should murder every single baby. The House fell into this shocked, hushed silence, as if, she's actually committed some terrible taboo. But actually, I think what she did was really good. Long overdue. We need a debate about this, and we're never going to get one if we leave it to our pusillanimous MPs, the idiots in the House of Commons. Not all of them are idiots, but many of them are absolute groupthink morons who have consigned the issue of whether or not women should wear burqas to must not be discussed, might offend Muslims, we might be accused of racism, we could be called Islamophobic. So, just like in the grooming gang scandal, let's not go there. Let's repeat the same mistake again. So when Sarah Pochin raised the issue, I thought, well done. We're not going to get anywhere with it in terms of the House of Commons, because what was the Prime Minister's response? We were in the middle of something called Prime Minister's Question Time. And the thing about PMQs is you must not be deluded into thinking that this is when the Prime Minister answers questions. No. This is when the Prime Minister receives questions and then avoids them. Now, when he avoided Sarah Pochin's perfectly reasonable question, it was couched very intelligently, actually. She said, well, given that so many, you love Europe and all these European countries, given that so many of them have banned the burqa, we're talking about France, Denmark, Austria, would you consider following suit? What was his response? I'm not going to follow you down that line. That was it. I mean, but that sums up why we, the people, thanks to people like Sarah Pochin, are going to have to get this debate going ourselves, because those cowards, those spineless morons in the House of Commons are going to avoid this like the plague if they possibly can. Particularly Labour, because, of course, they rely on the Muslim vote, or they will at the next election. 4 million Muslims live in this country, and as you may have noticed, Keir Starmer is staying on the right side of the Muslim vote like there's no tomorrow. You name it, he won't offend the Muslims about it. So he will not allow this debate to happen. I think we've got to get it going. And my view on it, I hate the idea of, tyrannically telling women or anybody what they can wear. I'm a libertarian. I believe in the fewest rules and regulations and laws as possible. If you leave people to get on with life, you'll find the nation in which they live will function much better than if you have a massive, great sort of socialist type government that thinks, for example, it's better at bringing up children than mums and dads. Let's get these kids into school so we can really start shaping their minds away from their Neanderthal parents.
Maoist.
Exactly. So I hate the idea of telling people what they can wear. And if you say a grown woman should be able to make her own decision, it's a powerful argument. But I do think, like France, Austria, and all the other countries, many Muslim countries, Tunisia, Turkey, the Stan countries, all over there in the East, they've nearly all banned it.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, all Muslim countries ban it left, right and centre, many of them. More Muslim countries have banned it than I think European countries. I think I'm right in saying that.
Which makes you think it can't necessarily be a staple of mainstream Islam.
Yeah, exactly right.
What is it?
Why are they doing this? Why is France doing? I had an imam on my show on Talk last week who did. I said, well, why? You say that it's a terrible thing to do. Why has France done it? He said, well, France is an extremist country.
I saw that.
It's like, no, France is not an extremist country. So why has France done it? Why have Tunisia done it? There are practical identification problems. You can't have people going around covering their faces completely for lots and lots of practical reasons. Last week, a car being driven erratically by a woman in a total burqa was pulled up by the police, and when they lifted the burqa off, the woman's head, it was indeed a 12-year-old boy. So that sums up the kind of practical difficulties why we really should think about this. Muslims who want to keep the burqa, they will argue back saying, well, we have no objection to women taking them off if it is required, by a bank or a security check, passport check, whatever. Although I've heard that lots of Muslims do have objections to that. But that's just one. That I think is a minor element of this argument. I think what we have to decide about the burqa as a 21st century free Western democracy, allegedly, is, do we like it? Do we like the burqa? Do we want to live in a country that enshrines the covering of a woman's face for religious reasons? Because the countries that have decided they don't want to do this, it is purely this. They don't like the idea of it. They don't like the idea of what it represents. They don't like the idea of having to cover up a woman's face for any reason, particularly if it's that medieval claptrap that if a man should see the skin of a woman's face, he will be so consumed with uncontrollable lust that he will not be able to stop himself from attacking that woman. That is a load of, am I allowed to swear on this?
F word, maybe.
Fucking crap. That is a load of fucking crap. And it seems to me a reasonable proposal that we as a nation, Britain, should discuss this, should debate this. And it's an extremely pernicious thing that we have a government, and indeed it's not just the government, it is MPs of all shapes and persuasions are railing against an open discussion of this. What did Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, what was her response to this? Typical of Kemi. Every time there's a proposal for something like let's do something about asylum seekers, let's stop them breaking into our country, she'll say, as she did at the weekend, well, I've got an idea. Why don't we ban them from getting benefits for 10 years? Well, okay, Kemi, how about stopping them in the middle of the channel, maybe? How about not giving them free hotels, not giving them free food, not giving them free doctors, not giving them free dentists, and most of all, not giving them free lawyers to fight their case to stay? So, yeah, sure. let's stop their benefits. That is so Kemi Badenoch. Everything is a fee. She waters everything down because she's terrified of disturbing the universe. So what has been her response to Sarah Poshin's brilliant opening up of this argument? It is, Kemi Badenoch said, I think maybe bosses should be allowed to ban the burqa in the office. Well, okay, fine. But how about, that's not what we're asking. So are you, Kemi, saying then that the Tory policy is to allow women to carry on, or allow the Muslim faith to carry on covering up its women? And the arguments that the Muslim commentators come up with are suspiciously coordinated. They're all the same, So their argument for this, I know this because I interview these people on a monotonously regular basis. They have the same kind of response to Gaza as well. It's a kind of a strangely coordinated, as if they get together to work it out. So their response is, very, very few women actually wear the all-over burqa. And in fact, that one that actually literally is what Boris Johnson called the letterbox. The letterbox. Well, It's actually worse than that. You can't even see their eyes. It's a check thing, a net. That's from Afghanistan. There's another form of that, comes from sub-Saharan Africa. So they say 99.9% of Muslim women don't wear this in Britain, and then they always say the women in my family, for example, don't wear it. I have no objection to their faces being seen. So they come over all reasonable. So it's rarity and scarcity. Why are we getting our knickers in a twist about such a very, very minute number of women, Anyway, so I did this interview the other day. It was just towards the end of my show. My show finishes at like 10 p.m. I got out of the office, down onto the tube at London Bridge. It was about now 10 past 10. And coming up the escalator was this sort of, they looked like a bunch of crows or something. It was this sort of about 8 women, all in the ones where you can only see their eyes. I get lost in the names, but there's the all over and the ones where you can only see their eyes, and then that awful one where they kind of cover the nose as well and look like the penguin or something in Batman. Yeah. So you go, hang on, I've just been told that this is an absolute scarcity rarity, and there's 8 of them, and this as you move around London in particular, you see them all the time. So that argument, it's so rare, it's not worth talking, that is nonsense. And what I think these people don't want us to confront is the possibility that we actually ban it. So they cloak themselves in deep, reasonable tones. But what they're arguing for, what they're trying to stop us, the people of Britain, doing, is banning this hideous, medieval, repressive form of clothing that consigns women to the ranks of second-class citizens. Yeah. Which is why we have to think about ignoring them and actually maybe doing something. So, long-winded way of saying, am I in favour of banning the burqa? I think, with extreme reservations, and I'm open to discussion, I think I am.
It sounded more resounding than that, than the reservations, but I understand what you're saying.
Well, just because of freedom of choice.
Well, this is difficult.
It plunges, this argument, like so many, plunges me into difficult territory.
Yeah, and me too. And I think many viewers and listeners, we don't really know how to navigate this. I was thinking, imagine being in that burqa. Obviously, some women embrace it because I think they are ideologically captured and they go, this is part of what I want. And some won't want to wear it and will feel like they're forced to. And there's all sorts, it's very complicated. But what a strange thing, because your skin must start to feel almost like a superpower. If you showed someone, they would suddenly get aroused, or, and I don't know how you'd navigate living in a modern world with that.
Well, when you talk about, of course, they will also argue, the apologists for the burqa will also argue that, these women make this decision, on their own back. It's their decision, they're adults, they get to make this decision. Well, that is disingenuous to say the least. I had a text from a listener the other day when we were discussing this. And she said that she lived next door to a Muslim family and they had a lovely little girl who used to run around the garden, play with her kids. And at the age of 8, she disappeared beneath the burqa.
8 years old? Is that how young?
Yeah. She disappeared and now all she sees from this lovely little playful kid that used to romp with her own kids is this person completely covered up. But that started from a very early age. So she may say, I do this voluntarily, but the fact is they're plunged into this so early. I'm sure that most people, it's not as young as 8, but that's what this woman said happened to her neighbour. That, the argument is, well, are they old enough to make their own decisions? Now, Kellie-Jay the feminist campaigner for women's rights. I mean, she has a full-time campaign going on. She's just been to America to canvass women. Have to wear this burqa.
Bloody brave.
And they're all to a woman. They're all saying, "No, I don't want to do it. I just have to do it. I have to do it because of my family." So there are many women. Let's get this straight in the West who have to wear this garment, this item of apparel, against their own wishes, just to keep everybody happy. And they're talking of America. There's a massive problem there banning it, because it will, if you ever tried, it would almost certainly be banning the burqa would be ruled unconstitutional.
Freedom of religion.
Yeah, exactly.
My friend James Esses sponsored this show. I'm amazed by what he's doing, one of the few therapists providing therapy without wokeness. He created a directory of over 70 mental health professionals not affected by the woke mind virus for mental health support that's neutral, non-judgmental, identity politics free, evidence-based, and pro-free speech. If you're struggling with anxiety, addiction, loss, relationships, cancel culture, or feeling low, go to just-therapy.org, link in the description, where you'll also find James's private practice for therapy with the man himself. It's so complicated, isn't it? I mean, one of the things you said was because we don't like it, but the whole point of sort of free speech is, I defend speech I don't like. So with clothes, do I defend clothes I don't like? But I mean, what is not really being said out loud, I think, in government is we now have a rising number of extremely religious people. I mean, there are Hasidic Jews, there's like 20,000 of them. There are Christians who are super religious. There are millions of Muslims in this country now who are very religious, and across Europe. And I walk around this building sometimes, I have to step over people because they're on the floor doing a whole prayer thing. Britain hasn't been religious in that way for hundreds of years, with Christianity, how it may have been hundreds of years ago. We're not used to that. And it's very hard to have freedom of religion, which I think is a good thing, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And at the same time go, but not yours because it's a bit extreme, mate. Like, stop doing it.
Yeah, and that's the difficult choice we have to make. People say, you must never insult. I always usually find all these sort of shibboleths, these aphorisms that people take as true. If you actually turn them on their heads, you might get somewhere. So people say you should never disrespect a man's religion, or a woman as well, but that's the phrase, isn't it? You must never disrespect a man's religion. If you turn that into you must always disrespect a man's religion, life becomes much more interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think you should always do it, but you should certainly be prepared to do it if there are elements of that religion that you don't like. And there are elements of, there are elements of Christianity I don't like, quite a lot of it actually, but there are elements of Islam that I think are very awkward for a Western country like Britain, or for that matter America, all Western countries, because they completely clash with our culture. That is the problem about the burqa, that it is not commensurate with a 21st century free democracy. And if you take it, and I do believe, I don't see how you can interpret the burqa as anything other than a sign that a woman is subordinate to a man, is a second-class citizen, lower than a male. I don't see there's any other interpretation. And as a free Western democracy, I think that's something you have to take a stand against.
I had this interview the other day with Iain Dale, who's a lovely man, but he did something that I found, and you must have found a lot of progressives doing, which is very frustrating. And I sort of noticed this watching it back, and I thought, God, I should have probably said something here, which was I talked about the issues with Islam, and he said, well, look, I don't go around noticing, oh, that's a Muslim, that's a black person. And I thought, well, hang on, that's a whole different thing. You're talking about skin color and race. And do you notice that as well, that there's a sort of a progressive need to imagine that we are attacking people for their race and saying it's racist? Yeah,
I mean, I'm with Iain on that. I mean, I genuinely don't go around going, oh, look, there's a black guy, or there's a Muslim person.
Yeah, but my point being, it's a deliberate conflation, because we're not saying there's a black person. I don't care if there's a black person.
But Iain's stance, my stance, probably your stance as well, the traditional sort of, if you like, metropolitan liberal stance, who cares what a colour a man's skin, Martin Luther King and all that. Well, we've had that thrown back in our face. We're now told that if we don't recognize, if we are basically colourblind about the people we talk to and meet, if we don't make a point of saying, this is a black person, this is a Muslim person, then that is racist. I would say that isn't the case. I would say if you are talking to someone, a person of colour or a Muslim or a Jew, and that's the main thing you're thinking about, that their race or their colour or their creed, then that seems to me to be racist. And now we're told if you're not thinking that, you're racist.
But also, I think the conflation of Islam, which is a belief system, with ethnicity or race, black, white, Asian, Arabic, which are things that I think we've all agreed, as you say, the Martin Luther King thing of like, well, who cares? Yeah. But now we can't criticize a belief, and that's integral to modern values, isn't it? Liberal values.
Yeah, and I think also what Iain's saying, you can all go around saying, well, I don't go around thinking about, that is... if you're saying, I don't go around thinking about the burqa all the time, Muslim people. Well, that is a bit of a cop-out. It's a cop-out that is being embraced by our MPs. Oh, we don't have to talk about this. It's a bit like 10 years ago, every MP, and I mean every MP was going, this migrant alleged crime. We don't have to talk about this. It's quite bad, actually, because I've got quite a few Muslims in my constituency, and I'd rather not talk about it, actually, because it's good for votes for me, not to criticise them. So it's this refusal to confront issues that we actually have to confront. Respect to Iain and all that, but it just is not good enough to go to sort of and I'm sure that's not what he meant, but to sort of park this argument by saying, well, I don't go around thinking he's black and he's a Muslim. Well, since we're being instructed to do just that, and since we have rising cultural tensions, to say the least, to put it mildly, then, going around saying, I'm all right, I live in North London and I read The Guardian, I don't have to worry about what's going on in Dover or Bolton, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. We've got to confront this. And it's a tragedy, a scandal, actually, that the people who represent us in Parliament, with the possible exception of the redoubtable Ms. Pochin, just won't talk about this. It's just it's a disgrace.
It feels like there's never been a time in recent history, anyway, where the elites and the have been so out of touch with regular people, and I mean, I've mentioned before on this show where I live. The streets around where I live is almost entirely Muslim now. You don't see white people, and that's what most, particularly, I mean, working class people are now facing in the cities, particularly up north, but all around the country now. And those politicians, they just don't see it. They're not seeing it. What was it that got Dawn French, speaking of that kind of celebrity class, in trouble this week?
Well, Dawn French, I mean, I feel sorry for her, really. She's just sort of a victim of her groupthink tribe. She didn't even realise that sort of, dismissing October the 7th. Yeah, well, you did something bad to us. She didn't realise that to dismiss what happened on October the 7th as a slight blip that we shouldn't obsess on was actually disgusting. It was totally disgusting. But, of course, in the people she hangs around with, the groups, her social group, no doubt her professional group, when she goes to the actors' workshops, they all think exactly this. So she didn't even think she was saying anything controversial, and in the manner of showbiz people, when she realises, oh Christ, I've done something slightly wrong here. Oh no, you misunderstood me. I'm apologising, but I meant everybody. No, she didn't. What she represented there was this. I'm loath to go as look. It's this growing anti-Israel sentiment among the fashionable circles, among the left, among the people who work at the BBC, among actors, among comedians, among singers, showbiz people, the fashionable lovey crowd, anti-Israel, making it very clear we're not anti-Semitic. It's not about Jews. It's the Israeli government we've got a problem with. Well, I know quite a few Jewish people. I live in an area where lots of them live. And to a man and a woman, they all say, you go around saying you don't like Israel, it means you don't like Jews. And that pretty much is it. So Dawn French fell into that. She didn't fall into that trap. She was already ensconced in that trap. The way to think fashionably in this country is Israel bad, Palestine good. And how do we get over that October the 7th problem? Well, it's a long time ago now. In fact, we can now go, oh, you did a bad thing to us. I mean, it's just shocking what she said.
I suppose it's not necessarily up to Jews to define, that's you're being anti-Semitic. I know Jews would say it is, and I'm one of them, but that's anti-Semitic because I say it is. There's got to be intent, doesn't there? And it is complicated, isn't it? Because you need to be able to criticize Israel and its politicians. But I think Jews are not happy that it's like, well, why only Israel? Why are you not upset about Sudan, Greta Thunberg, and the Congo?
Exactly, with the Jeremy Corbyn syndrome. His only foreign policy he's been interested in literally for 60 years. He's never changed his mind once. Is Gaza, Palestine, Israel. He's never talked about another foreign country ever. And he's symptomatic of so many of his ills.
Fashion.
It's always Israel, because Israel is America's friend and all that kind of stuff. So it's a symbol of the West in the Middle East.
Which is why it's not necessarily anti-Semitic, even that kind of...
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, you have to be careful. I mean, these people... Dawn French, whatever she says, is clearly anti-Israel, hugely anti-Israel. Yeah. The BBC newsroom is clearly hugely anti-Israel. Now, I think in the case of the BBC newsroom, and I know some people there, and it's not fair on them, but there is a definite aura of anti-Semitism there. The BBC is now saturated with a kind of anti-Semitism. There's no doubt about it. BBC Verify this ludicrous fact-checking department, 60 people working there, seems to be there to try to justify the BBC Newsroom's reporting of Gaza, which this isn't a debate. It's been an absolute national disgrace, an absolute scandal. It's not a debate. It's not like, is it fair to say the BBC has, been a bit anti-Israel in its bias of reporting on? No, it's not easy. It has been. I mean, there was a 1,500 barrister lawyers came up with a report about 6 months ago or so, I think it was, may have been longer, which sort of listed report by report, the mistakes the BBC had made. Now, in the fog of war, sympathy for all journalists, I've done a little bit of it myself. It's really difficult to get the facts right when you're reporting war. But the thing about the BBC's reporting of the Gaza conflict is 99.999% of its mistakes are always in favour of Palestine and against Israel. So the bias is really clear there. And BBC Verify was sort of set up to try to restore by someone called Deborah Turner. She's the chief executive of news. What's that mean? Why don't they just call them news editor?
Like quite Orwellian, isn't it?
Yeah.
Chief executive of news.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
Have you got news? I'm the chief executive of that.
Oh, by the way, talking of Orwell,
this
is there's a trigger warning. They've just put a trigger warning on 1984, which sort of there's something really. That's the whole point.
It's supposed to be. Yeah,
the book is warning against the type of society that will put trigger warnings on literature. Did you see what I mean? And now we've put a trigger warning on it. Not really getting the point. But to get back to the BBC, Deborah Turner is their chief of news. She felt that because of the disquiet over the Beeb's reporting of Gaza, that she needed to restore trust in the BBC. So she set up BBC Verify, fact-checking organisation that doesn't actually know, for example, the difference between acres and hectares. So when it was verifying a question or a report about how many acres of farmland would be affected by Rachel Reeves's inheritance tax on farmers, so they calculate it on the base of hectares, not acres.
Whenever you get these kinds of people involved, whether it's BBC Verify or sort of DEI policy officers and those kinds of, I can never say the word, was it apparatchiks? Or what? Apparatchiks. They always are so malleable and open to ideological sway. They become just these...
Well, that's the trouble with BBC Verify.
Yeah.
So not so long ago, there was a poor Oxford student at Oxford University who was beaten up really badly and thrown into the River Cherwell and died as a result, murdered. And the interest in the case his problem was that he believed in the sanctity of biological sex. Now, at Oxford University and other universities, of course, that's illegal these days. You can't think that. So he was very badly beaten up and chucked into the River Cherwell and died. And the interest in this case revolved around the fact that the murderer, the murderer was convicted, was a woman. A woman beat this guy up. And bang,
So I don't know this story, but I already know where it's going. We'll continue. Because that's how mad this is.
So it was, somebody complained about, I don't see this as possible. So BBC Verified checked it. So this whole saga, the reporting of it by the BBC and the checking of it by Verify and the subsequent conclusions published, never once did they mention that this woman who beat the hell out of this poor kid and chucked him in was a trans woman, was a bloke, was a biological bloke. The BBC never once mentioned that. Even when Verify was asked, can you get involved and try to explain what went on, they couldn't bring themselves to sort of reveal the somewhat pertinent fact that, in fact, the murderer was a bloke.
It's unbelievable.
So it's ideological misinformation. And there's a big problem with fact-checking. I'm an old-fashioned journalist. One of the bases of my career, I've never quite let facts get in the way of a good story. But to be serious, fact-checking, that was done by the journalist, by the reporter. Why suddenly do we need a department of 60? And then costing us, BBC licence fee payers a fortune, by the way. And then you have to ask the question, well, they with their sort of Olympian self-importance say, here, we've checked it, it's all there. Who then checks the fact checkers?
Yeah.
You can't, fact checking cannot be, a sort of process that reaches a destination with no more inquiries are required here. The BBC Verify has decided. No, the BBC Verify gets things badly wrong quite often. Even the woman who runs it, turns out that she wasn't exactly truthful. She's a bloke. She's a bloke.
Do you remember that Elon Musk catastrophe of an interview BBC did with him when they were accusing him of disinformation?
God, yeah.
That's just, and I wonder if that's when we'd have to look at the timeline. Is that when BBC Verify came into being after that, or was it growing? Because that was awful. And obviously Elon was going, okay, well, what's some of the examples of disinformation that I've been spreading? Or whatever? And they were like, well, people have said you've been doing it. It's like, well, give me an example, because now you're spreading disinformation. But what's amazing, it reminds me of Dawn French as well. And it's all of these people, they live in this bubble. And when she obviously expected everyone on Twitter to go, yes, well done. She must have been shocked. And I think it's the same. This BBC fella, he lives in some sort of community or some sort of bubble where everybody just goes, Elon Musk, yeah, disinformation. Not like us. He's disinformation. And he must have been shocked at how that came out and how it was perceived, that people didn't side with them. But no matter how many times they get this wrong, they still continue going in their ideological mad bubble.
Yeah, but what is it all about? What is it? BBC Verified, Dawn French, all of these people, what are they looking down on those who might admire Elon Musk or might admire Donald Trump or who voted Brexit? What is it all about? It's about this increasing syndrome that we have in Britain of a kind of educated upper middle class, often went to public school, Oxford and Cambridge, ended up in the BBC, who basically, and particularly politicians as well, who see it as their job to protect us, the masses, the undereducated masses, from our own ignorance, to protect us from our baser instincts. Obviously, you all made a terrible mistake when you voted for Brexit. It's now our job to turn that juggernaut around. It's our job to teach you about the truth about Gaza. Israel bad, Palestine good. Do you get it? I'll make a video about that. Everybody will love me. Oh, maybe they don't. So this is a very, very worrying facet, an increasing facet of British life. The people in the media, the people in politics, opinion formers, if you like, who feel that the masses, if I use this term very inaccurately, the ordinary people of Britain, the decent ordinary people of Britain, men, women, are wrong because they're stupid. Yes, we'll have to put up with their opinions, but let's make sure that they never have any power. Hence, the establishment's sort of manic efforts to not bring in the Brexit result. I mean, what a disgrace. What was that? What did that take? 6 years? 6 years from when the people of this country voted to leave the European Union. The establishment, the political class, did their level best to stop that coming into play for 6 fucking years. Yep. Now it's just wrong. And here's so what annoys me about this syndrome is that the people invariably are not wrong. It is the elite, the establishment, the idiots who work at the BBC, the morons in the House of Commons who are wrong. When the people say, look, we don't really like 60,000 illegal foreigners coming across the channel every year, to be embraced as if they're long-lost friends and given everything that we can possibly give them, costing us £4.73 billion every year in hotels alone. Never mind everything else. We don't really like that there's 108,000 asylum seekers sprayed around expensive hotels all over We'd like this to stop. How about you turn the boats around? How about you don't let them in? How about you detain and deport? That's what the people are saying. And all these idiots in the House of Commons and journalists go, fucking morons. Idiots. Well, they're not idiots. It's a really good point. And what is really confusing to me is why more politicians can't see, well, what the people are asking is not unreasonable. Why don't we set about trying to give them what they want? In other words, populism. Populism. They go, oh, populism. Oh, God, populism. We've got to stop populism. What is the definition of populism? It is the instigation of policies that are popular with the people. What is it that the left and the BBC and Labour MPs find so appalling about that concept? Policies that are popular with the people. We must stop that.
I suppose I mean, as you know, there are issues with populism when it does things that it will be popular with some of the people, but will actually inevitably lead to not such great results. When I lived in Argentina, one of the implementations of a populist, it was Christina Kirchner, the woman who I think has been arrested now, absolute nutcase, and hid millions of dollars in a nunnery with the nuns. They were all sort of hiding it for her. Bonkers woman.
God works in mysterious ways, right? Yeah.
But she, when I was there, she had this thing, football for everyone, and that was, in Argentina.
Like
in Argentina, you win with that, don't you? Football for everyone. But it meant spending like an inordinate amount of money on the football rights and making sure they were like, football for everyone to watch in the slums, when really they probably, there are better ways to spend that money. So that's the downside of populism. But I agree. I take your point. I mean, at least do something. Give us something that we vote for.
But the opponents of populism that opposition, by the way, is very performative, but they just cite previous results of populism. And yes, of course, you talk about the Nazis, the fascists in Italy, it can have bad results. But it doesn't. That isn't what populism is. It isn't, the pursuit of policies that end up with the Holocaust. But that's kind of what our liberal elite, our media elite, and our politicians interpret it. And if you get amongst, these sort of the high priests of the Labour movement, people like Alistair Campbell and Neil Kinnock and that this is a religion for them, to protect the people from their baser instincts, that these people are ignorant and we must make the decisions for them, otherwise we're all going to hell in a handcart. Well, actually, it'd be better the other way around if you listened to the people and did what they want. I mean, it is a weird thing that the people en masse tend to be they tend to make intelligent decisions. They really do. Democracy works in that way, and it's unfortunate that in Britain we seem to have reached a point where people work against democracy because they don't like the idea of the people getting what they want.
It's a funny thought as well that, celebrities and these, musicians and things, they were supposed to be anti-establishment. They find themselves agreeing time and time again with the people in charge now. Why don't they see that? You worked for years in showbiz. You've met a lot of these celebrities up close. What are they like? Is it just all for them, even more than normal people, about fashion and what will make them popular?
Yeah, it's fashion. It's fashion. Coppers and entertainers always reflect where we're at socially, culturally. So back in the 70s, TV comedians were all kind of right-wing Tories who were members of the golf club.
Jim Davidson.
Yeah, Jim Davidson, Jimmy Tarbuck, all these people. Right-wing conservatives who kind of espoused a kind of, a suburban, traditional conservative Margaret Thatcher view of life, lazy, dull scroungers, work hard and you'll do all right. I've done all right for myself and all that. Same for the coppers. Coppers were all right wing in those days. So were judges. Judges were very right. Well, I know this because these were the early days of my journalism career, and judges were hilariously right wing, and they never knew anything either. I remember the days of Lord Denham, who once famously in court said, "What is EastEnders?" And also when they were talking about Paul Gascoigne.
Oh yeah.
So the barrister said, Gaza said, they said, "Who is Gaza?" So they were out of touch and right wing.
Yeah.
Now, coppers, judges, entertainers are all left wing because that is the cultural orthodoxy in which we find themselves. So all of these are the Dawn Frenches of this world, the people who work on The Guardian, people who work at the BBC. What they don't realise is they are the new establishment. It's people like me who are anti-establishment because we dare to say things that might not be construed as left-wing.
You know what's funny is when you meet a policeman today, a former policeman, like 50, 60, 70 years old, when I've had conversations with them, most of them anyway, they will have been sort of manipulated by their children and grandchildren or whatever. And so time and time again, they'll say, gosh, I did a lot of things back in the 80s and 90s, and I regret that. I now know better. And I want to sort of grab them and go, no, you don't. Yeah. You really don't. But they get seduced by the new fashion. It was fashionable when they were 30 or whatever to be one way, as you say, and now they regret it all. And
yeah, well, coppers used to catch the bad guys, like the Sweeney and all that. Now they're terrified to catch the bad guys in case they have done something socially wrong, culturally offensive, and so on and so forth. So that's your score. That's the score. What you watch it as society changes. The police, judges and entertainers go with it. They're totally orthodox. So Dawn French thinks she's being somehow or other anti-establishment by her ludicrous, moronic nonsense about Gaza. No.
She looks a bit odd. She's gone a bit funny, hasn't she?
Yeah, well, yeah, she never was all that funny, if you ask me, but that's another issue. She thinks she's being like kind of controversial and out there, but no. She's just being completely establishment because that's where we're at.
It's infuriating, though. It's a sort of establishment, anti-establishment, and those fashions, you see it with this. I mean, I started thinking there was nothing they wouldn't do, because you see for a while it was adopting African children. I mean, that's quite a life decision to make just to have a sort of accessory, isn't it? And now trans children, all trans, all their kids, all the celebrities' kids.
Yeah. Well, that's another issue where, I mean, we've got to get real, isn't it? Trans. I mean, the Supreme Court's biological sex ruling. I mean, think about that. It took them 5 years to get 5 years. These are the greatest legal minds in the country, allegedly.
Yeah.
They took 5 years to basically say, right, we've come to our learned decision after 5 years. We've decided that if you're born, like a kind of woman, with woman's bits, then you're a woman. Wow, thanks. But it was, although there's something inherently ridiculous about that, and that's another fear about this country. That in itself is an example of where Britain has lost what it used to be extremely good at. That was being sensible. We used to have this country used to have a sense of common sense. It has completely lost that now.
Well, Australia got it wrong. They went the other way.
Yeah. Well, Australia is now like kind of it's a penal colony again. Everybody's getting arrested if you don't preface every sentence with a long homage to the original settlers.
Yeah.
I don't even think you're allowed to call them Aborigines anymore. They're tying themselves up in knots. So Australia as well. But
they think women have penals.
Yeah, but we've got to get real about that. I mean, this is what everything that. I mean, I am utterly for trans rights. If you're a bloke and you want to put on a dress and say you're a woman, knock yourself out.
I'm glad you say that, because I brought my.
Yeah, whatever makes you happy, live your life in that way. It doesn't, as long as you're not harming anyone else, go for it. But what did they do? They just kept pushing their luck. Why? I put on this dress. I've had some surgery as well, so now I am a woman, aren't I? Well. Nah, not really. I am a woman. No. You are now, while I want to support you, I want you to live your life exactly how you like, and I want you to have full rights. You should have full rights, not trans rights, just rights as a citizen of this country. Don't make me say something that is scientifically untrue. You are now demanding that I speak a lie to support you. This person who used to be Bob, but is now Barbara, is now definitely a woman. Or worse than that, this person who has just said, I now identify as a woman, is a woman. That is fucking crazy. And so they push their luck to that extent, whereas people like me who wanted to give them as many rights as possible, I'm sorry, I'm not going that far. And that's why we ended up with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court had to make that ruling. And there are still people all over this country, particularly like huge organisations like the NHS, who will not listen to that ruling.
Which is extraordinary. I think you're right. I cannot think of a more mental thing. And some people say, why so often do we all talk about the trans thing? I think it's just the single most obvious example of the kind of mind virus that people seem to be suffering from.
Yeah, and a really, really skillful extremist lobby. Remember, most trans women or trans men, my audience, by the way, get really angry when you even call them that. Yeah, don't call them trans women.
GC ultras, gender critical ultras.
Well, it's just all of them. They just don't call them that. They're blokes in dresses.
Yeah, but you can't really be a news presenter constantly talking about, the blokes in dresses at the Supreme Court. You got to.
Well, I've tried to explain that quite often and said, look, I'm suddenly a shorthand. Don't even say it.
Yeah.
But
they should be trans men. A man who thinks he's a woman should be called a trans man.
Yeah, but they wouldn't like that.
No, but he's a man who thinks he's trans.
Here's the deal, though. The last census, I think I've got this right, revealed that there, I may be slightly inaccurate in the figures, but I'm just about right, I think. there are sort of 260, 270,000 trans people in the entire country. Population. So we have a population of basically 70 million people, and there are 260,000. Then it turned out that the last census, the question about trans was confusing if you were not brilliant at English, which a lot of people a growing number of people in this country aren't very good at. So they downgraded that to, they think there are probably 160, 170,000 trans people. So let's say 165,000 trans people in a population of 70 million. That doesn't mean to say we shouldn't discuss their rights. We shouldn't discuss the issues surrounding them, but wouldn't you say that the amount of discussion that goes on about this 160,000 people is somewhat disproportionate?
Yeah. Well, I think partly because we talk about it on our side, because it's so mental, this idea, even if there are so few of them. I think it's finally putting our foot down to this kind of postmodern academic nonsense. It's finally going, okay, you think you've had us. You're doing all the, truth is not real. Is this table even a table, or is it just a bunch of atoms? That man might be a woman. What? No, hang on. No. Tell me the table's not real, fine. I don't care. I'm not having that.
Well, it is, I hate to bring her up, it's the Meghan Markle philosophy, isn't it? Never mind the truth, what about my truth? Now, that is an approach to life that I could get very illiberal about. We should ban that. That is crazy, to sanctify people being able to state a clear, demonstrable untruth as the truth on the basis that they want it to be the truth.
Well, she's a right-wing tradwife now.
To say that is valid is nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, but she's now like a right-wing tradwife. Well, having started off as an unconscious bias big lefty.
Meghan, I don't know what to do. I mean, I spent a lot of time talking about Meghan. I think you know what I'm talking about. She's journalistically, people say, why are you so obsessed with her? I'm not obsessed with her. But in our business, she brings eyes to the table. People are fascinated by her, and I can see why. I mean, she's, in some ways, she sums up everything that is wrong with. Is she Generation Z?
I don't know. Yes, one of them. She is of a generation.
Yeah,
I don't know which
one of those generations.
One of them.
Well, she sums up everything that's wrong with them. Kind of, why don't you go and get a job for a kickoff? Why don't you stop talking crap about, never mind about the truth, let's talk about my truth. Why don't you stop pretending that you're changing the world, you're improving the world, when really you're just on the make, you're trying to be famous. Why don't you stop pretending that you're not in a constant state of massive disappointment because in your naivety, in your American naivety, you thought that marrying a British prince would mean you were marrying a billionaire, and you've discovered, oh my God, not only is he not a billionaire, he's a lot less than that. Why don't you stop pretending that you're not in some kind of financial desperation, hence this blizzard of nonsense on social media. So, she's a huge hypocrite.
That's a celebrity boss.
Pursuing her own interests,
Yeah, well, another such example would be Greta Thunberg.
Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, she's held up by many young people as a hero on the left. She's just been, at the time of filming, she's been intercepted by Israel. And you know what's mad? I've had friends sort of on the woke side calling me out going, you see? And I go what? I go, they've broken international laws to stop her. What are you talking? What a normal thing to do. She's sailing to a war zone.
So do your friends think that Israel will be convicted under international law for saving this little moron and her moronic 11 friends from certain death?
I think so,
because that's what they did. Of course, it was like a dull irritation on the part of Israel. Shit, we're going to have to go and stop these stupid idiots sailing into Gaza. So the Navy goes out, did it in the middle of the night, which was good, so they didn't get any good footage. Brilliantly dismissed Greta's boat as the Selfie Yacht.
Yes, that was officially on the Israel Twitter, wasn't it?
Very clever, which is exactly what it was. Did you see at one point on the voyage? There she is, like it was all sort of Titanic, like almost on the helm of the boat. Lovely sun setting, and she's sort of posing for a picture with a cocktail.
I just think
with a cocktail. She's on a Mediterranean cruise. How does she get money, by the way? Why doesn't she go out and get a fucking job?
Hundreds of thousands in donations.
I know.
She's doing all right out of it, isn't she?
But you know, this is again, this is a sort of Meghan style thing. This cuts to the heart of this vacuous. Social media, selfie, younger generation.
Women.
Yeah.
I'm joking, everyone. I'm joking.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. No, there were 12 of them on this boat. I mean, to be fair, they never pretended that the cargo they were carrying was anything more than performative aid for the poor, starving people of Gaza. And they must have known in their heart of hearts they'd never get there. So it was all about them, virtue signalling, polishing their own halo. What do they say? We will break Israel's siege. No, you won't.
The arrogance, the entitlement.
And you think, what on earth is this for? And you think about Greta Thunberg. You know, this is a woman sort of arrested development semi-child, if you ask me.
Well, she must be 25.
How could she have developed properly? She hasn't lived. You know, what she should do is like what most adults do: is go to school, maybe go to university, get a job, pay for yourself. You know, work for your living and develop as a human being like everybody else does. But she's managed to deprive herself of that and turned herself into an A-grade weirdo, which she already was. I'll probably get a hard time about this, but she's on the spectrum.
Well, that's part of the problem here, because I looked into her childhood, when she was about 15 or so, because she was on the spectrum and she wasn't very happy. She was just a bit miserable. Basically, her parents admitted, or more or less, she was miserable because people weren't really giving her all the attention she wanted. So her parents couldn't handle her. And so when they've said, and it's brilliant, since she started lecturing world leaders around the world at the age of 17, she's been great around us, you know. So it's like the ultimate entitled, spoiled brat.
Yeah, exactly right. And if you get it into context, she stated sometime, made a big thing of it, that by 2023 we'd all be dead. Humanity would have been destroyed by the horrific vicissitudes of climate change, of the climate change emergency.
You have stolen my childhood.
Yeah. The climate change emergency, they say the world's going to... Yeah, that's right. Stolen my childhood. No, you stole your own fucking childhood by sitting around in a square protesting when you were like 11. Go out and play or something.
Touch grass.
She says that the world... she said the world would be destroyed. All human beings would be killed by 2023 due to climate change. So that disappointingly, didn't work out. So she seems to have moved on to sort of multi-purpose protesting and is currently wrapping herself in a Palestine flag. She'll find other causes as well. She's just a global irritant. I suppose she'll carry on like this. But when you saw what happened with this boat, what did she call it? The Freedom Flotilla.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the point of it?
PR.
Well, it's literally me. It was, as the Israelis quite rightly said, a selfie yacht. Let's take some pictures of ourselves. Let's shout and scream about how wonderful we are because we're going to save the Gazans, the poor Gazans, from the evil Israelis. So, you know, I don't care about Greta Thunberg, but she is...
She typifies her.
She's a typical symptom of the kind of modern mess we find ourselves in.
Her boat also, apparently, I read, went by a boat giving aid to Sudan, where there's a significantly higher number of casualties and things. She doesn't give a shit about that.
Yeah, she's probably never heard of Sudan.
What?
Yeah.
She thinks it's a car.
That'll be next week. That'll be next week's cause. Yeah.
Do you think that Trump is actually on the Epstein files?
Look, I mean, being on the Epstein files covers a multitude of sins and actually a multitude of non-sins as well. A lot of people who are completely innocent are on the Epstein files. I mean, actually getting on that plane, the Lolita Express, and going down to Pedo Island didn't necessarily mean that you're involved in some of the nefarious activities that were going on there. That's, of course, Prince Andrew, among others, is accused of being involved in something that he, of course, strenuously denies, begging the question, so why did you give Virginia Giuffre $12 million to shut the fuck up then? So we'll leave that question hanging in the air. Donald Trump. My bet is that he's on the Epstein list, files.
Yeah. The flight logs.
Because there's lots of pictures of them together. He hung out with Epstein. There's no doubt about that. But we shouldn't conflate that with the fact or the allegation, suggestion that Donald Trump somehow was involved in all the awful stuff that went on. So, yeah, he'll be in the files. The question is, to what extent? To what extent? I mean, Musk making that allegation was the moment on Twitter. I was on air that night. When it was all kicking off. I do this sort of hour-long section where people ring in with their medical problems.
Oh, right.
So,
Dr. Kev.
Well, it's called, I have a GP in the studio called Dr. Renee Hunderkamp, great name. It's called Call Dr. Renee. So I'm getting calls from old ladies saying, I've got such trouble with my hernia. And I'm going, hang on a second. Elon Musk has just called the president a paedophile. So I was trying to sort of juggle the news agenda quite difficultly. But when Elon Musk finished, right now the bombshell, he's on the, that's when I thought, this guy, I mean, whether or not he's taken a load of drugs, I don't know. But I think that proved to me he's not in possession of his full faculties. He's not firing on all cylinders. That was a ridiculous thing to do. That guy's got 3 massive businesses to run in the United States of America.
Yeah.
He just basically called the guy who runs the United States of America a pedophile. That is not the action of a man who is
smart businessman
who is functioning well up top.
The shares dropped automatically.
It was a ridiculous thing for it's a ridiculous thing for him to do. Self-destructive to a huge extent.
Odd, but very entertaining.
Oh Christ, yeah. I mean, for me, Trump. I mean, Trump's box office. But you do sometimes. I mean, I like what Trump's done. I like his approach to government. In theory, I like everything he says. I liked Doge. I loved day one. Wokery is over.
Yeah. And all the women with him signing a thing.
It is now illegal. It's brilliant. And why don't we? But it kind of worked.
Yeah,
we should do that.
Imagine a British leader doing that.
So I like him in principle. And as a journalist, I absolutely adore him because he's box office. This guy, he must be the first human being in history who literally spends more time on television than off. And the one thing you can say about Donald Trump, you can never accuse him of a lack of transparency. His presidency is essentially conducted on television.
Well, I suppose people would argue, well, hidden taxes and things like that.
But I mean, of course, there's a lot.
And I'm sure he lied. I mean, didn't he lie like 50,000 times?
Yeah, well, he's a politician, isn't he?
Accessibility, I'd say.
Yeah,
he's there.
But what I'm trying to say is, I mean, I take your point. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of things we don't know about Trump, but I think you have to lump that about Trump. I mean, he's clearly on the make in terms of his family, isn't he? The Bitcoin enterprise and everything. He's lining his pockets nicely, but other presidents have done that. But what worries me about Trump, because I'm in favor of the Trump project. I know about all the reservations. I get all of that, but did I want Trump or did I want Biden or did I want Kamala Harris? Of course I wanted Trump. Those other two, they're useless.
No, me too.
They're absolutely useless. Biden was a catastrophe, an absolute catastrophe. So Trump is good in that respect, the antidote to these hopeless, useless, conniving, virtue-signaling, halo-polishing, idiot Democrats. He was the antidote that country needed. But on the downside with Trump, when you see this last week, like he's in the Oval Office firing off social media attacks on Musk, and Musk is saying he's a pedo. I don't know what's happened to Elon. He's wearing very thin on me now. And all this. You think this is the most powerful man on the planet. This is the president of the United States, basically having a playground punch-up with a nutter who happens to be very, very rich. And you think, is this good for America? Is this good for the world? I don't know. I mean, It's new.
We'll know in 30 years, looking back, I suppose.
Yeah.
Maybe it is a good antidote to the sort of statesman-like boringness of it all.
Yeah, I don't think it's inherently damaging. It's different, and perhaps that's a good thing. But it sometimes your jaw drops and go, oh, wait a minute, this is the president of the United... You can't imagine Eisenhower or someone like that.
I know, but it's entertaining. It's entertaining. I've got one more question for you, but where can people find your work and your channel and stuff?
Well, I'm on TalkTV every night from 7 until 10 p.m. I got a program called The Political Asylum, so that's every weekday. Highly recommended. Also, I present a TV show made by Talk called What Just Happened. That comes out. I film that on Thursdays. Comes out Wednesday night. We play that at 9 o'clock on Talk, and then it's available on YouTube. So if anybody fancies going to YouTube now, you can find What Just Happened. There's an episode out there right now, doing very, very well, though I say so myself.
We'll put a link to that.
So that... And that basically is where you can find me.
Yep, I'll put your address, home address as well. I'll put it all down below.
Yeah, at TV Kev if you want to follow me on.
Yeah, that was a joke about your home address.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't meaning to. Yeah, well, why not?
Your phone number, home address, and pictures of you naked.
Are you going to ask me who my favourite heretics are?
Who's your favourite heretic?
I've got two.
Two, go on.
I was thinking about it. One is Peter Tatchell.
Yep. He's been on this.
A man who I admire immensely. And although I don't necessarily agree with all the causes he takes up, when he takes up a cause, take it seriously. He never takes up a fatuous cause. He is the opposite of Greta Thunberg.
Yes.
He's a serious man who certainly puts his money and his own physical well-being where his mouth is.
Got a fight with Mugabe.
Exactly. And by the way, interestingly, for example, what I like about Peter, I have him on my show quite a lot, and there's this undercurrent, we're not really on the same political side, but we both believe in freedom, freedom of expression, freedom of speech. Remember that guy? Remember I think it was Northern Ireland, the case of the baker, baker's shop that they refused to write the gay marriage message on the icing of the cake.
Yeah.
And it was a massive legal battle and I think it went all the way to the Supreme Court or something. Peter Tatchell, through every step of the way on that, was with the bakers. He said,
their right not to have to print
they should have the right not to do this. They're a very gay man, very much into gay rights, siding with the people who. So that is what I admire about him. And my other favourite heretic is Britain's best columnist, Rod Liddell.
Oh yeah,
who he's on my show every Tuesday night, 7 o'clock. And what I like about Rod, is he is exactly what a columnist should be. Too many columnists in the media, in the newspapers. All they do is reflect what everyone else is saying, oh, the migrant crisis is out of control, it's terrible, that murderer, oh, string him up, that's too good for him, it's just a sort of reflection of what the masses are thinking. Nothing wrong with that, but for me, a good columnist looks at any issue and comes up with what everyone isn't thinking. Don't do it deliberately, don't do it just to be contrarian. But Rod, I think it comes to him naturally. And you've got to remember, Rod, his history politically, people, all the lefties go fascist, Nazi and all that. His history politically, he's a member of the Labour Party. He's a sort of left-wing northerner. But, as so many people like him say, I haven't left the Labour Party, they've left me. Rod stands for working class people. The Labour Party now stands for people who read The Guardian in Hampstead and Islington in North London. So those are my two heretics.
Great heretics. Yeah, we've got to get Rod on this show at some point. That would be good. Yeah.
He comes on my show every Tuesday and we greet him with an increasing sense of trepidation. He always says something that gets us into trouble.
Like a true heretic.
Exactly right.
Well, people, please go follow Kevin. We'll have the links below to his brilliant channel. I'm always watching it, so you'll be watching it when I'm watching it, and we'll all watch it. It's wonderful. Please go follow that. Hit the like button. Keep watching this channel now.